It's the 16th of April 2025. Galway Wind Farm. Now, according to RTE News, Irish national broadcaster, plans for a 30 turbine wind farm off Clare, Galway coast, have been halted. And what it says here is, now, Tommy Tiernan, the fellow does the Late Late Show, objected. Apparently, he lives down there. He said a plan to build 30 wind turbines off the Atlantic Ocean, in the Atlantic Ocean, off County Galway and Clare coast, which had 6 major offshore wind projects central to the government's climate plan, will not now be proceeding. The Sceirta, S-C-E-I-R-D-E, the Sceirta Rock wind farm project that was developed by Corio generation, was due to deliver power for 3,500 homes and save 550,000 tonnes of carbon in a year. That is all complete and utter lies. Complete and utter lies. Absolute complete and utter lies. And there's no point complaining to the regulator that won't listen to you. I don't know. I tried it. Speaking as Os Gaelic earlier, the Taoiseach said he was disappointed. That means he was speaking in Irish. We are sorry Cairo made this decision, but we are going forward. We're not going to stop. You'll not stop them, but they try to do this. They'll try to do it, but it's impossible. We're not depending on any one project, as we have an extensive plan going into the future, and some of those wind farms are already permitted. Yeah, they're permitted because you rigged the planning system. I mean, the SEA directive is quite clear. It should be assessed. There's no assessment done because Mr. Martin and his people are incapable of assessing anything. They can't assess the children's hospital. So the thing is, we took a case way back. Do you remember that? I asked for a few pounds for it. That failed because the Court of Justice ruled that the Aarhus Convention was not the law. And I hadn't much of an input into that, and I kind of knew that. But then there was one taken by Friends of the Irish Environment, and the European Court of Justice ruled that the government was entitled to make budgets. So they ruled with the government. So where it's down to now is that once they make the place to attack it is when they grant permission. They have to have the SCA Article 3.2 when they apply for planning permission, and they don't have it. And so that is still open to apply to the courts. Would you believe it's nearly impossible to get a senior counsel to plead that? And I helped people take a few cases in the High Court, and the barristers told them, we can't mention that in the court. It's all tied down. The government has the lawyers pinned down. They know if they win on this, they'll block the whole thing. So we're working on that bit by bit. And so we'll see how that goes. But the European Court of Justice has ruled what a planner programme is in the case C2419. And it's, as I say, they need it for all their projects, including the wind energy. But it's very hard to get a case lined up. And they won't, if you attack it on the SCA directive, they'll probably back down. And it is quite possible indeed, I didn't look at the things, the submissions, that for this wind farm, that was on it as well. So we are, and I am, having a big part to play in persuading people to include, don't forget, there could be 6 other grounds in the statement, just include this one as well. And it makes it impossible. They're in this impossible situation. They haven't the brains to do an SCA. If they did, it'd prove wind energy was a scam and solar energy, so they don't do it at all, and they make it up as they go along. Anyway, so that's the story. Now, the project had been planned to construct on this Sceirta Rocks, 5 kilometres off to 11 kilometres off the west coast. The project had proved controversial locally due to potential visual impact of 30 turbines with a height of 325 metres. Now, the thing about the height is, what happens is they never make money, so they keep saying, we'll give you bigger ones and they'll make money. If you go up on top of a mountain, like the Loch and Lay mountain or any big mountain, you'll find there's always a breeze up there. And the reason is that any movement of wind meets the mountain and goes up it, and it increases speed. That's Pythagoras' theorem, the triangle, isn't that Pythagoras? It is. And it increases speed, and when it goes across the top, it's going faster. But if you put a weather balloon up there over flat land, it won't move at all. And you'll see these Roman candles often up nearly the height of a mountain, and there is no no big breeze. And you'll see weather balloons up sometimes very high in calm conditions, and they're barely moving. So if they put them on a mountain, you do qualify for that wind, but you don't put many of them up there, they're hard to service. But the thing is, if it's on flat ground, they say make them bigger, and that's a lie. They don't perform any better. It's the area of ground swept that matters, not the size of the turbines. But any lie is better than none. So RT sought a response, and they hadn't given one, but then they indicated six weeks ago that it's reprioritising this project. That's just happy talk. Given the challenging market conditions in the offshore wind sector, Carrier Generation is focusing on its global operations to prioritise the development of a smaller portfolio of projects which have the clearest route through to construction. So obviously there's challenges building them anyway, but the cost of building them is enormous. Speaking this evening, Minister Darragh O'Brien said the loss of the project is regrettable, and he said that he had anticipated that there could be attrition from proposed offshore wind projects. Attrition is a stupid word. Attrition means wearing down gradually. The war in Ukraine has been described as a war of attrition, by Russia. But this is what these politicians do. They give them a booklet of big words to use when they're cornered. It's absolutely meaningless. Collectively, the phase 1 project, which has been progressed through planning, so it has been through planning, which are being, it's not granted planning permission, it's been pushed through planning, will deliver almost 4 gigawatts of renewable energy. That's a lie. In addition, it will be processing a new national designated maritime plan. All this out happy talk, right? As government will remain very committed. Of course they will. The minister said the offshore wind auction will take place later this year for 900 megawatts of generation off the southwest coast. Now, folks, the article, you know that years ago I collected a few pounds, and thank you very much. We took a case on the Aarhus Convention. The European Court ruled that the Aarhus Convention was not the law, it's the SCA directive. And I kind of knew that, but I just collected for this man that was taking a good case, everything above board, and that didn't go. Then the Friends of the Irish Environment took case C727 of 22, and they took it on the lack of SCA, and the court ruled that the article that deals with the power of the government to make, they're entitled to make a budget. You see, the SCA directive has a provision that doesn't stop the government making a budget. But what the court ruled, and I don't know why Friends of the Irish Environment have nothing to do with me, it could be just a thing to throw the like of me off to make lose in the court, I don't know. But certainly the government can have a budget, and it can put money here and there, and money for hospitals, money for everything, money for schools, and money for windmills, and that's not challengeable. It's only when they move to actually perform the planner programme. And if they do a planner programme, you can challenge it. If they don't, you have to wait till they apply for planning permission for a wind farm or something else, and then challenge it under the regulations for that. I've just completed a public consultation there to the Irish government on the SCA directive. Well worth to read it for you there. Maybe I'd go through it now if I have a minute. So essentially, I have everyone wired up to this. Everyone knows it's there. If it doesn't go ahead on the SCA directive, a judicial review I'm speaking about, it'll be no fault of mine. It's very hard to get barristers. Some lawyers won't even discuss it in the courts. There's some type of a hidden thing among barristers. And it seems to be there with senior ones as well. You wouldn't mind junior ones. They might be afraid if they challenge the government's programme, they mightn't get promoted to courts and things. But if they, as judges, it's very hard to get a judge to do it. And in one case, we won, a group that I was supporting won, and the senior counsel said it was wrong, that the court was wrong to allow the SCA directive. It's the law we all signed up for. But you know, law means nothing now in Europe. I mean, when they're banning political parties, where do you go with this? So anyway, it goes on there lamenting about it. So the news comes despite of the fact that a planning application for the wind farm was submitted to Bord Pleanála earlier this year, and Cairo has said the construction will begin in 2026. So they're pulling out. Now, I have made the point, I'm constantly examining the performance financially of these wind farms, and they're all insolvent. They can usually make enough money to pay their annual costs, all the various costs they have out of the receipt for wind energy, but they don't have enough to pay back the capital cost. I've made that quite clear. So if the wind farm has a 22-year lifestyle, we'll say, it declines as it approaches 16, 17 years, but also they would need to have the full cost. In the case of Rara wind farm, 30 million euros, they'd need to have the 30 million euros collected and paid off that to the banks or whatever, or shareholders, before they would be clear. But what they do is they lie about it. And what they do is they get the profits, which could be 500,000. Oh, we made great profit last year, great profit. And they get the oil price, the fuel price, and that's coming down. That'll be a bigger problem. But we made great profit, but they don't tell you, they don't pay off the capital costs. And the auditing of all of the wind farms I've examined all say that the parent, they would be insolvent. They would not be a going concern unless the parent company bailed them out. And that's all right for ESB. You just pay that in your bill. National toll roads, SSE electricity, you're just paying that in the bill. They just throw it onto the bill as extra costs, and you don't see it, and it's hidden in there. I've made that clear to you before. But Greencoat Renewables was picking up all the insolvent wind farms, including John Lang PLC, his Carberry wind farm that was making nothing. He was making no profit, and they bought them over. So there had to come a time when they were caught as well, and they have pension funds and all. There's only 8 investments, mainly finance houses, investing in Greencoat, and their share price this morning was 74 cents. It was 72 last week. It's hovering about 70 to 72. It hasn't gone below 70. If it went to 69, that would be a disaster for them altogether. But essentially, you can invest in in Greencoat Renewables at 74 on the euro. So if you can only get 74 back after paying 100, what's the point in being involved? And so I'd say this company knows the same. When they build a wind farm off the coast of Galway and Clare, this Corio Energy or whatever they're called, when they build that, that wind farm will have a lifetime of, we'd say, 24 years, we'll say. I don't know. The wind on the coast is not any better than inshore. It's only very marginally better. That's a hard fact, but that's it. And there are all kinds of problems, huge expenses. So when they start to pump it into the grid, they'll get a certain price, and that's based on the fossil fuel price. So if fossil fuel is very dear, they get a bit more. If fossil fuel is cheap, they get a bit less. How are they going to know what fossil fuel is? There could be a big recession. We don't know. But the thing about it is that they know already, unless they're stupid, and maybe my videos is doing something to show that, they know already that they will probably make enough to cover their annual costs. Just about. There'll be a lot higher costs with boats and everything going out there than there would be for an onshore wind farm. So they may not even cover their annual costs. But for certainty, it doesn't give a value in millions there for it, but for certainty, we'll just do a wee calculation. Well, we say it's 10 million for offshore. I'm sure it would be per turbine. It's 3 million for an onshore turbine. And these are big ones, so it could be 10 million. So there's 30 of them. 30 tens is 300. So 300 million. So they'll have interest rates, they'll have shareholders to pay and everything else. Who's going to invest in that if you can't make it on Greencoat? So they'll borrow off the bank. Will the bank give them the money? Well, if it does, will there be enough to even to pay back the costs? There won't be. And so they can never pay back the capital costs, even if the wind farm stayed there for 1,750 years, 1,750 years, they'll still not be able to pay back the capital cost. And this is the realization that's coming through. It takes a while for word to move around, but they have no answer to this. And if you were to make the Galway wind farm, that one, viable, the electricity would be so dear that it would almost be certainly cheaper to generate your own. So you'd have to put the cost on the diesel to generate home electricity. Everyone would have a generator. You'd have to have it, or you'd have no electricity, and therefore you'd have to put up the price of petrol and diesel, and then transport would become too dear. Nurses wouldn't be able to get to work, guards and army wouldn't be able to get to work, nobody would be able to get to work, accountants or anybody else, and so you'd have to make a litre of diesel, which is now about oh God, don't ask me. I pay it every day and I can't remember. It's about 109 in Bellabor, in Bellabor, 109. That'd be €100 for a litre to make those wind farms viable. Do you know what I mean? In other words, you'd have to make electricity from the mains. It would become very expensive. You'd have to make generating your own so expensive that it'd be still cheaper to get the mains. And to make the generation of your own electricity so expensive, you'd have to charge a huge price for agricultural and road diesel. And if you had to put up the price of diesel, no farm could work. Everything would go bankrupt. So it can never pay for itself. Do you understand my point? Do you understand? I've explained that big time, and I think most people now see it's a scam. But finance is finally hitting them, and they don't know what the future is. Imagine, I don't know what that wind park will cost. Some are printed there, but if you know what it'll cost. Well, here's the article in the Irish Times. And it says, Tommy Tiernan has said, it's a disgusting thing to do. Why didn't he take up the cause of me and other people who have these foisted on them? The same as Pat Kenny. He wouldn't listen to anything about wind turbines until they went to build something beside him, and then he went to court. One of the country's best known entertainers is objected to plans for a 1.4 billion. So there's the price. That's 1.4 billion. That's 1,400 million. Oh, here. Now, you'd have to pay that back over 22 or 3 years. Normally, these things are paid back over 7 to 12 years. Now, we'll just hold a minute. Well, I make that here at 46.6 million per turbine. Unbelievable stuff. Now, Mr. Tiernan said, I'm objecting to the proposed offshore wind farm near Connemara, County Galway, on the grounds of desecration of that area of natural beauty. Well, it's all right to do it in the Slieve Blue Mountains and kill the grouse that are there since the Ice Age. The actor, comedian and podcaster said, culture is judged by how it protects areas and ideals such as this. Allowing such a project to go ahead when there are many more suitable sites. See, hump it off somewhere else. Isn't he living down there? He has a house down there. You see, dump it on somebody else when there are many more suitable sites. Where? Either much further offshore, no, that increases the price, or inland. All right, put them on people's homes. Why don't they put them beside his home? It's an irresponsible and disgusting thing to do. So he wants them dumped on somebody else. There has to be more to our country than utilisation and exploitation of where we live. That means of where he lives. Didn't matter when anyone else was doing it. Catherine Connolly, an independent TD for Galway West, told the appeals board, I have received numerous representations from a diverse range of people expressing the very serious concerns about the proposed development. Carna-based community group Connemara Coastal Protection that the board that it has concerns, told the board it has concerns over the impact on a person looking out on the horizon of 30 Eiffel Tower sized turbines. This is the reality. I'll not go on with it, folks, except to say there are groups on to me every day. This is illegal. The case of C2419 explains what a planner program is. This is obviously a planner program. The Court of Justice of the EU ruled that the government is entitled to set aside a budget, but when they go to planning, this could have been appealed on the budget. Why can't they collect enough? It's 40,000 to go in. If you can get a senior counsel, I'll get a junior counsel and a solicitor, but to get a senior counsel could be a problem. And then it's another 20 if they go to the Court of Appeal, and another 20 to go to the Supreme Court and get it referred to the European Court of Justice. I've devoted much of my life to trying to bring people around to that. And don't forget, when you appeal to the High Court, you have 8 or 9 other grounds, so you can include this one. And they'll back down once they know you're going to hit them with the SCA directive. Have I explained that? The applicant company is a joint venture between the Australian-based Macquarie Group and global infrastructure investor, the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund. So there you have it. There you have, even in Tommy Tiernan's own view and the view of Catherine Connolly. The application company is a joint venture between Australian-based Marguerite Group, nothing to do with Ireland, looking for what they can grab out of it, out of your bill and mine, and global infrastructure investor, the Ontario Teachers' Pension Fund. So here we have Irish electricity bills being utilised in the hope to pay Marguerite Group dividends and the Ontario, Canada Teachers' Pension Board. So the old lady in arrears will be paying the pensions of the teachers in Ontario. Doesn't that say enough on 20 minutes, folks? Is it any wonder that people say you shout and roar? How can anyone be so stupid as to destroy our environment for yokes that do nothing to save fossil fuel and have failed in Germany to work? To pay an Australian group to give them that believe they're making money, they're not going ahead now, and the Ontario Teachers Group. What do we owe the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund? What is it about the Irish that they have to be always giving away? Even when their arrears in Ireland is a quarter of all bills. What a crowd of idiots. But there'll not be any of these wind turbines built because they can't make any money. And the pension funds that are investing are foolish, but that's the way it is. Meanwhile, I and a few others have to try and protect our environment from this madness that's going on. Comment underneath. We'll see you back soon. Bye.